The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I'm absolutely honored to chat with Sande Hart. Sande is an award-winning leader in the fields of women empowerment and interfaith community building and the author of the Nautilus Award-winning book, The Liminal Odyssey, The Alchemical Power of the Spaces in Between. She is the founding president of the Global Women's Village since 2001, originally named S.A.R.A.H, the Spiritual and Religious Alliance for Hope. Sande developed and served as the director for the Women's and Girls sector for the Charter of Compassion and served on the Women's Task Force for the Parliament of the World's Religions 2015 through 2023. Sande has received congressional recognition and produced award-winning community building initiatives for 2 decades. Welcome, Sande.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. How's your day going?
Oh, it's such a beautiful day here in Southern California. It's breathtaking. So yeah, I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Oh, nice. We're just kicking off season 5 here of the Oracle of Luna podcast. And we've got a lot to unpack here because you've got so many achievements. And I just want to make sure our listeners get a good sense of who you are and your book too. So, all right, are you ready to get rolling?
I am, and I'll speak very quickly.
All right. Well, I usually start out with my guests and ask, how did your spiritual journey begin? And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I gave this some thought because I've listened to your program, which I just looked for. Let me start by saying that. I'm so grateful for you and your podcast.
Thank you.
I was born Jewish with no real education or specific Jewish values woven through our lives. My parents were older, and they did have a much more structured Jewish upbringing with my sisters, who were all teenagers as I was coming out of diapers. We celebrated the holidays, but really little was done in between to anchor me in any faith, really. I mean, I knew who I was. I knew who my grandparents were. I know that our story, but really I wasn't really rooted in any particular faith when faith comes in very handy especially. But I was always fascinated by what made people think and behave at a very early age. Realizing it was probably their culture and the religion, but I didn't really have any way of exploring that, and really never gave it a lot of thought as a kid. But I can look back today and go, okay, that was really a part of my spiritual journey, which is so much about curiosity, right? About what's really going on. But it wasn't until I was volunteering in the temple office. My kids were going to religious school. I wanted to give them something. And it was really at that time that my rabbi, who was really a trailblazer in interfaith, he was really groundbreaking in interfaith. This is, back in the 90s. And it was when he introduced me to this concept of interfaith. So while in retrospect, my spiritual journey began at birth, and all along the way, through this curiosity that was kind of going on in the background in my consciousness, and at some level, I knew that there was more. It was not until I was about 40 that my cultivated spiritual journey really began.
Sounds like you had an awakening at that point.
Yeah, it just made all the pieces fit.
Okay. Interesting. I like hearing about people's upbringing. I think it says a lot about who they become our foundations and the people we grew up with. So, who has influenced you? You mentioned a rabbi. Any books or other mentors that have influenced you on your philosophical or spiritual activist path?
Yeah, well, certainly that rabbi opened my consciousness in such a broad and vast field of exploration. There's no doubt about it. He is a big nugget on my path, a big reflective pull on my Indra's net, if you will. But I
Mhm.
hadn't realized until I was writing my book how many mentors, influencers, how many books, how many teachings, how many philosophies, how many experiences, both wondrous and mundane or painful or heartbreaking that brought me to my knees that I've had, especially those who I perceived as villains and heartbreakers and brought me to my knees in my
Mm.
story. And those were also my greatest influencers. So to suggest there was one more impactful than the other, I don't think I'd be doing my life justice. I do pay honor and respect to everyone along the path, including those who I once saw as villains in my story. And I absolutely have reverence for them. Um, and yeah, I can point to those individuals who steered me down the path through both loving guidance or forced me onto paths through disillusion or that heartbreak.
Yeah.
And so it's heartbreaks that really I can mention. I recognize I've just said that three times. So for me, that's coming up as that's where great lessons are, right? And
Mhm.
we have a choice what to do in that
Mhm.
moment. And I just continue to say yes until I learn my lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we learn the most, I think, from our love relationships, as heartbreaking sometimes as they are.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
when did you become interested in women's empowerment?
That was a really organic and unsuspecting awakening. Also, after 9/11, I found myself thrust into a role of leading women's community building, S.A.R.A.H, which you mentioned. That was the morning of 2001. I heard gather women, did not know who was giving me these orders or what I was supposed to do with the women once I gathered them, but I gathered them, and again, without any training or preparation, I found myself a leader,
Yeah.
and not really even connecting the leadership empowerment. Just saying, here, let me open my door and see what wants to happen, which was very uncharacteristic of me, because at the time I was the director of sales and marketing for a major home builder.
Oh,
And yeah, I'm conditioned to lead the room, take up the
yeah.
air in the room and, set up all the parameters and all of the numbers we're going to hit and be, and and create that structure. But something happened the moment I opened the front door for the first time and let the first woman step into my home to have this meeting because I was instructed to gather the women, and that's what I did. And that I heard get out of the way. It I suddenly was rewired in that moment. Um, and um, and over time, um, I found myself, operating in that fashion
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how enriching it was, how much I had to learn from these women. And they were really leading me. And then, you put yourself out in this work and in the community, and I started recognizing pattern in other women's leadership that I discovered, much to my dismay. It took me a long time to see it, that were more performative and less authentic,
Yeah.
and definitely not really empowering. And I was either witnessing unbecoming conditions that I was capable of, because you can't really see something in another if there isn't a part of you that is potentially that. We're all mirrors for one another, or model. And I was sure that I didn't want to emulate, being that perpetuating any unbecoming conditions that were my shadow side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was really that disillusion that inspired me to dive deeper into really understanding leadership. But I've always struggled with the language of empowerment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It
Um,
sounds like psychology. You're interested in how people think too and
oh,
behave.
yeah. Yeah. And right, when you're in that state of curiosity, you're not leading, you're listening, right?
Yeah.
You're following them down their past doesn't mean you're going everywhere they go, but you want to know. It's a state of curiosity. And the word empowerment is just heavy. It's top heavy. It's the old paradigm, right? It was me in the sales room and, standing in the head of a boardroom. It was, that old paradigm. Um, but even then, I had learned about servant leadership, which is
Mhm.
how I naturally showed up anyway. And people wanted to work for me
Mm,
because they were successful working for me because I listened to them and
yeah.
I knew that I really worked for them. Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, Bridget, I heard this word from Bliss Williams. She's on our advisory team. She said she prefers the word repowerment,
Mm.
which is really about reminding us who we are.
Getting
Yeah,
to our essence, actually, real power.
I think so too. I really do.
So
Yeah.
what does the Global Women's Village, previously named S.A.R.A.H, what do they do?
Well, we're about just that. We are about recognizing, where before we were interfaithful, and now we're about really recognizing who we are, what is our role, and what is our responsibility, and what is preventing us from moving this needle.
Mm.
It's been 150 years since our suffragist grandmothers took to the streets. Yeah, and while we have made strides in women's rights and in policy and rules, but wow, look how fragile it is, especially today in the United States.
Yeah.
And so why is that? Why is it not unfathomable that women be considered, the weaker sex still? What haven't we done? What questions haven't we asked? What is it? And so much blame has been put on the patriarchy, the man, even though we know women also perpetuate that condition. That it's really, what is it we're accepting? What are we perpetuating?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have to live within the structure of the present world, in our society, and that is patriarchy, and hopefully the last throes of it. I hope. And so we have to adopt a certain amount of that, in our system, and it's poured into our brains at such an early age, and how we accept it. It's hard to unpack it later in life, but I think it's worth the effort. And that's what my podcast is about, really, is amplifying the divine feminine in the world to bring about balance. And I feel like that sounds like it's a trying to bring in balance and the feminine voice, right?
It is. It's really about us doing our work. Why
Okay.
is it that I started thinking about this, the hero's journey, right? And maybe we can
Mm.
talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But the hero's journey is this template, right, of our life, right? We feel the calling, we go within, we have this catalytic shock that it's time to change. We go and we could and then we go on our path, right? We leave the world we knew, or the village we knew, or the story we knew, and we go out on our path and we meet wizards and mentors and guides, and then we continue on our journeys, on our hero's journey, and then we meet our pixies and our tricksters and our monsters and our alligators, and then we come into an awareness. We go through this trajectory, right? But this morning, I was thinking about the metamorphosis of a caterpillar to a butterfly. And, that catalytic shock, that calling, that evolutionary impulse, it's time to change. It's time to bring back balance. So what do? It's time to go within. It's time to go into the underground. It's time to go into the darkness. It's time to do our inner work. And now this is the imago stage, right? You go into this ooey gooey state of reimagination. The scientific term is imago that happens to the
Mhm.
caterpillar, right? It's all
Yeah.
gooey. And and its DNA resembles nothing of the caterpillar it once was into the butterfly it will be. But we can't say, okay, I'm imagining spreading wings and then drying off on a leaf and flying away. We have to do that work.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you try to help her, if you try to push it along, and for me, it's not only it's liberating. I think it's liberating because I've been doing this work on the balance of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, left, right brain, lunar, solar, the and yet I get frustrated. It's like, what am I doing wrong? It's like, oh, I've got to be gentle with myself because just like that caterpillar is not ready to just sprout its wings, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
you have to go through this organic process, but what this butterfly does is she does her work and nobody can help her, and it has to be her process. So
right.
that to me was an epiphany that I had thinking about our call today. So I should thank you.
Good. Well, tell us a little bit about your book, The Liminal Odyssey, Alchemical Power of the Spaces in Between, and what inspired you to write it, and how does the reader work with your book?
The Liminal Odyssey is a weaving of my own wild experiences, my own stories, woven together through an even more wild through more wild synchronicities, which really surprised me as I was writing the book. And then each of those stories are anchored in a methodology, a philosophy, science, indigenous shared wisdom, pro-social psychology, quantum science. I can go on, the trust frequency philosophy. But I didn't set out to write that book. I simply set out to write this one story that happened to me in 1982 that my friends had been urging me to write for about 15 years at this point. And I'd tried to write it. I'd sat down and tried to write it a couple times, but I couldn't even fill up a page. But then I heard this word from Jean Shinoda Bolen. Perhaps you know who she is.
Yes.
And she was telling me about this word that she just loved called liminal. I had never heard of it before. I found it a clunky word. It didn't roll off the tongue. And she described it as meaning threshold. And she giggled. She was so excited about this word and meant so much to her. And she means so much to me as she does so many. And so I wanted to look more into this. So I started at the same time, thought I would write this story. And then I started thinking about the liminality. What was going on? What was the threshold between, this experience I had and what made that possible? Um, and and for me in that particular story, it's chapter one called What About the Dog? Real lesson or the real, no, the skill that I wasn't even aware of yet at the time, but I can look back and go, this is what was going on in me. It was sacred listening. It was the art of listening, which I had since become a teacher of and have studied for the last couple of decades. So I wrote about the sacred art of listening and what it means. And before I knew it, this other story that I had also thought was something of a mundane life experience, I decided to write that too. And in the same fashion, I'm like, what's really going on in this story? And for me, it was forgiveness, it was
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, and it
Mm-hmm.
was bliss all in one. So I wrote about that. So each chapter has a second part to it, the
Ah,
art of listening,
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
it goes on like that into cultivating awareness that leads to our divine assignment, cultivating synchronicities, body awareness, the maiden mother crone condition, the quantum science of mind over matter. All of these just seem to really make sense of my story.
So all
And
these experiences and teachings and
mhm,
stories that you've experienced and that you bring into this book with other people's knowledge open up to the enchantment and the divine web that we're all part of through like threshold times, right? The experiences or the feelings that when we're in between, like we're in between one state or another, one life cycle or life chapter, right? That's sort of kind of, I mean, I've read your book and I'm so wonderful and I love the interfaith messages and all the teachings, but the thread is that we go through this liminality throughout our lives many, many times, and there's potentiality in each of those liminal states, right? And so much that we learn, but we have to open up to that. And like you say, that sacred listening is so much a part of that and awareness.
yes, that's exactly it. It's awareness. And, yes, every breath is a liminal space. I mean, anytime there's a decision or a conflict, and a choice, a decision and a response, an invitation and RSVP. Anytime we, can stop in a state of awe and wonder and go, okay, what, how did I, like, why am I, what's my impulse to respond this way? And that's the thing. It's like we are constantly kind of going through, like you said it earlier, I refer to it as a domination trance. We're kind of like swimming along in waters we're not even aware that we're swimming in, right? And that's
Yeah.
why, like you said earlier, it's hard to break through. It's like we usually don't even know the decisions and the choices we're making
Yeah.
in daily
That's right.
lives. We just are used to doing it because it's an assumptive. And so, hey, before you pull something off the shelf in a market, just practice. Why am I doing this? Do I need this? Is it good for me? What are the ingredients? And you might come to putting it in your basket anyway, but it's the practice. And then
Yeah.
you start wondering everything else and questioning everything. And to me, that's the greatest gift we can give our soul. Because
Oh,
what if we're not
absolutely.
living our true potential life? What if we're stepping right over gems and jewels that are meant to be ours, but we just don't stop to look into the cracks? And that's what the Liminal Odyssey is about, is really slowing down, pulling apart the time. I coined the word timefulness, pulling it, create a condition of timefulness.
You had just said every choice or every breath is a threshold, crossroads. So we are constantly thrust into, change and thresholds, and some of them are more painful than others. But getting back to your book, I really, I loved all the chapters, but what stood out, there's a couple chapters, and one of them was when you're at Auschwitz and
Oh,
at the death camp, and you came upon this old oak tree and ancient oak tree, 100-year-old oak tree, and put your arms around it and hugged it. And then you had the acorns rain down on you. And I wanted to give a little quote here because it stuck out for me. You said in chapter 12, a forest of potentiality lies within each of us. It is my crystal clear prayer that the Liminal Odyssey supports us to be the sacred gardener of our life, manifesting in bliss. And I love that because it puts us in the control seat. We are the gardener of our lives. We're not just swimming along blindly in
yes.
patriarchy, suffering.
Oh, Bridget, I could cry. Right now, I'm covered in goosebumps, angel bumps. Thank you for that. I can never think about that chapter without getting a little knot in my throat or
Yeah.
uh, thank you for that. And that is that, I guess that's the thesis statement of the whole thing. It's like
Hmm.
we do have a seed in our pocket. Maybe a bunch of them. But who
Yeah.
knows what it'll grow into?
Right.
Our job to say yes to it.
What other things? Let's see. We were going to talk really quickly about the hero's journey or the shero's journey. That's a similar concept than the threshold, is that we go through a journey. We start somewhere, we get thrown off base, or we have these challenges or
Yeah.
experiences, traumas, and then we learn from it. We have to go through that journey. Do you want to take a second and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really happy to. Thank you. I think it's important because what it does is it helps us kind of know where we're at or what we're facing. And they're like it's important to understand the hero's journey so we can really this is what I actually this is better. I'm going to read you what the book says. Um, the hero's journey is important to understand so we can identify the signposts as if they're county line markers confirming our coordinates in life, but they do not always show up in a linear fashion as found when looking down at a map. This is where we need a new construct, a new structure, or better yet, drop the confines of what's predictable and start looking up for what wants to emerge as the new archetypal being, co-creating a new myth. It's birthing in each of us right now. And it is, if you understand the steps, and they're right there in the book, kind of 1 through 10, what the hero's journey is, the and this was a framework really created by Carl Jung,
Mm, yeah,
psychologist, but
right.
but popularized by Joseph Campbell and Disney and George Lucas and any movie plot. Like you can
Yeah.
just see that
Right.
every
Right.
story kind of goes along this path of, it's time to change. You meet your wizards, and then you get to this place of reckoning with who you are. And then you meet and you think you've reached the end of the story, and then more wizards and more alligators and more broken drawbridges. And how are you going to get from here to there? And then, but you find your intestinal fortitude and your actualized agency, and then you get to the end. And yet, the only thing I wanted to say about this is a framework that is an old structure and it has merit worth holding on to. Yeah, but it's also really important to understand that it's not linear, it's not spiral, it's not circular. It can bob and weave and come back upon itself at any time. And every day we can find ourselves at a new beginning. Um,
Yeah.
and and so that allows us the opportunity to start questioning where I'm at and not be so concerned with, am I near the end?
Yeah. Am I almost there?
No, enjoy the juiciness of it. I put it in the book too. Every
Yeah.
heartbreak, every one of those scars makes up all of our beautiful parts. Live it,
Yeah.
live it,
Yeah.
and don't be so afraid of the pain. It's there for us. We are a human. It's a gift of being a human that we have a mind that thinks and a body that feels. Don't stop it from feeling.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole butterfly
Mm.
analogy, starting with the caterpillar, going through I forget the name of the phase where we're just cocooning for a long time, and then the chrysalis phase, and then finally we break out and be set free in the butterfly phase. So, but we have to go through that journey, that painful cycle from start to finish.
We get to. We get to go through
We
that
get
journey.
to, yes.
Yeah, our culture doesn't do pain very well.
No, it doesn't.
The
Uh,
pharmaceutical companies are, we can thank them because we're conditioned. It's part of that domination trance. It's like, wait, 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 you don't feel too much. We'll just medicate you and buy our products.
oh yeah, I could go on about that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I think we all could.
We have to feel. Before we run out of time, do you have any upcoming plans for the future, such as new books, events, classes, workshop, conferences, real quick?
All of those things, yeah. There is a new book in the works, and it's about futuring a new paradigm, which is what the Global Village is about. It's about women futuring a new paradigm. No shame, no blame, no victimization. What is ours to do? And then kind of working through all those things that we get to work through. And that's a process. I'm probably a year out.
Okay.
But we've been planning for 2 years, a women's global women's convening called Destiny Ignited, and all of this can be found on the Global Women's website, Women's Village website. I coach. Oh, and we also have an upcoming series that's going to start next month called A Course in Futuring a New Paradigm.
Oh,
Yeah, so you can find out more about that coming soon, but at globalwomensvillage.org.
okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just going to ask what your website is and social media so that our listeners can find out more about you and your all your offerings.
Yeah, sandehart.com. Sande. It's the biggest mistake in finding
Yeah.
me, how I spell my name. I kind of stuck with it. Sandy, Hart, sandehart.com is a
Okay.
one-stop shop. You can get to the Global Women's from there. You can get the village there. I mean, you can get the book there. Oh, and we have a guidebook too. I have a guidebook too that when you ask how do you work with it, there's also a guidebook that takes you through chapter to chapter.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of a workbook manual. People can pick it up and actively learn that way. Okay.
Absolutely, with or without the book. Although it's better
Okay.
with the book.
All right. Well, I'm going to set aside a little time for you to do a short, whatever you're going to do, a blessing or meditation or a short visualization before we end here. So
Okay.
take it away, Sandy.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this time. It's been
Yeah.
lovely. I appreciate it. I'm going to invite you all to get comfortable. How are you holding any tension? Close your outer eyes or soften your gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. Raise your eyebrows. And as you do, feel the corners of your mouth rise to give your face a warm hug. Take a deep breath Now set your gaze to where your eyebrows meet and engage your superconscious there. Another deep breath. And sit or lay a little taller to allow spaciousness for your vital organs, your heart, your lungs. Now elongate the space between your neck and your shoulders. And now elongate your sacral center. Set your attention to the bottom of your feet and imagine you're pulling up energy from our source, our Mother Earth, from the bottom of your feet, up your legs, through your sacral center, up your heart center, throat chakra, top of your head, and expand far into the galaxy and reach back down around to where your feet hit the ground again or wherever you are laying. And in this consciousness, we're connected with our great grandmothers who have a message for us. And this is where I'll end. This is a message from the 13 indigenous grandmothers given to me, my grandmother, Flora de Mayo, Mayan Shaw woman. As you move through these changing times, easy on yourself and be easy on one another. You're at the beginning of something new. You are learning a new way of being. You will find that you are working less in the yang modes than you're used to. You will stop working so hard to get from point A to point B the way you have in the past, but instead spend more time experiencing yourself in the whole and your place in it. Instead of traveling to a goal out there, you will voyage deeper into yourself. Your mother's grandmother knew to do that, how to do this. Your ancestors from long ago knew how to do this. They knew the power of the feminine principle, and because you carry their DNA in your body, this wisdom and this way of being are within you. Call it up. Call it up. Invite your ancestors in. As the yang-based habits of the decaying institutions on our planet begin to crumble, look up. A breeze is stirring. Feel the sun on your wings.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
beautiful. Well, Sandy, thank you so much for being on the show, and thanks for inspiring us with your all your leadership and books and women's empowerment and spirituality insights and all your experiences and knowledge that you packed into this wonderful book, The Liminal Odyssey, and all that you do in regards to women's empowerment, the divine feminine, and allowing us to experience and seek out our potentiality and with wisdom and awareness. So blessed be. And thanks to all our listeners for joining us today.
It's been a blissful. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm about to sign off here. So, and until next time, bye bye.